Dear all, first of all, thank you very much for your assistance and welcome to everyone to our Adapting Our Leadership as Our Teams Get Bigger Master Talk. Today, we'll have the honor to introduce as a speaker Dr. Jordi Delcor. Most of you will know a lot about his strong and deep background. Even that, let me introduce some of the main high pillars of his academical and professional background. Academically, Dr. Jordi Delcor, he has a PhD in chemistry and several additional postgraduates in business administration and management skills. Professionally, he is a professor in EAE Business School in different masters on the division of MBA and as well on the division of human resources. He is as well senior consultant in business strategy, business improvement, and sales. And his wide main areas experience are management skills training, design delivery, business management, and technical expertise. I hope all of you will enjoy the session. And without further ado, let's start with the master talk of Dr. Jordi Delcor.
Okay, good afternoon. Uh, I'm very pleased to be here. The first time they told me if I wanted to do that, a presentation about big teams, the question I asked myself, is that the size the problem? So last week, I had a situation with four companies. One was insurance company. There were there was another banking company, and then two communications. And then the common denominator of the four interactions with the companies was really dissatisfaction. So what's really the size? Hmm. Why was I dissatisfied? And I can tell you, it's not me. Thousands and thousands and millions of people complain about the service companies provide. So probably the problem is not just size, but complexity. And complexity has many faces. In this slide, you may see some of the complexity factors which make running business very difficult today. Well, globalization includes diversity, complex interaction, because of the number of people and the diversity of people, people's diversity, complex processes, things are becoming more and more complicated. Uh, should I remind you what happens when you call a telephone company and try to fix your invoice problem or just hiring a new service, etc.? Or what about the climate change, how this is affecting everything we do? Or what about people's personalities? Or what about the flux of information and people's expectations? Or what about the difficulty we as human beings have to cope with all this technical knowledge? Well, this is getting crazy. But now, this complexity also has effects on everything, especially in management. So, how people behave, how do we have to manage people, how do we manage the conflicts, the performance, processes again becoming more and more complicated, and the strategy which has to be readapted and redeveloped continually, and also the stakeholders, society, the press, different groups, etc., etc. So, number, size is not just the only factor affecting difficulty, it's one of the few elements. So, what can we do about it? Which is perhaps the most important thing. Well, I'm going to give you some tips. These tips are based on what I teach in my sessions at EAE, and are based on my years of experience, and I hope you find them useful without any time to go into every detail. The first thing, always try to define objectives. Don't do anything without an objective. So here is a question which is going to save your face in many situations in life. What is the objective of that? Why are you doing that? The other thing is try to identify what is relevant in everything you do. What is relevant? What is the important part? Uh, Try to recruit the right people. Oh, what is the right people? Well, you have to define profiles and skills. You know that. But how do you find a profile? Last weekend, I was supervising the projects of the human resources master, and I asked that question: how do you find a profile? Well, a job is defined by the objectives, the purpose, not what do you do, what do you want to achieve. So try to recruit people based on what they have to achieve, not what they have to do. I have included a relationship here which says that the result is a combination of three factors: what people know how to do, skills, the commitment I have, and the resources. So make sure you have the right people with the right skills, make sure they are committed, and they have the resources. And although it is very simple, I have found a great number of managers and directors forgetting these three elements. And they put either the emphasis on the skills, on the resources, well, not really the resources, in most cases on the skills and commitment, but they forget about resources. Also, something very important, we are not robots, not yet, although we apparently we're going that way. But assuming for the next 10, 20 years, people will be still managing business, it's very important that we establish rapport with people. Basically, we know what makes people tick, what moves people, what makes them do what we want them to do. So that's building rapport. And real rapport is not talking about objectives. It's also knowing about people's personalities, interests, because people perceive when you have a genuine and honest interest. Another word I have included here is something which is very useful. And I'm surprised to see how many managers don't use that kind of very simple 7 columns Excel, which basically says for everything you do, every project you manage, you should fix the objectives, detail the activities, define accountability or responsibilities, prepare or define a timing, elaborate a list of indicators, progress indicators, and identify the main risks and how would you cope with these risks. Basically, contingency plan. Okay, and another tip, and this is something that happened to me in my professional life many years ago, but I think it marked me deeply, is that a professional life, is basically a set of boxes, different sizes, different shapes. Now, you don't know how the boxes work. Perhaps you know how some of them do, but most of them you'd have no clue. So the only thing you really have to know is what the input is and what do you expect from them, which is the output. So as far as you know input and output, you are safe. Specialists know the details, they know how they work. You just have to know input and output. And then prioritize and select big boxes, small boxes, and then there are connections with them. If you have that approach to business, probably your results will be much better and even the satisfaction. Another important skill which I have found people forget is ask the right questions and ask what do you know. Identify the critical elements. Murphy, I suppose all of you know Murphy. Murphy was an engineer in the 50s who had a very nasty experience when they were preparing the accelerators to train pilots, etc., etc. And he tried twice to do the simulation, but it failed because of technical reasons. The unthinkable happened, and that's what is called the Murphy's principle. So try to think what could go wrong and anticipate it. The penultimate uh, thing I would like to suggest is sense of humor. Well, sense of humor is very dangerous. It depends on culture. Some cultures are very literal, so everything you say will be taken by the letter. In some other cases, uh, humor will be out of place. But a few drops, well dosed, with no sarcasm, will help to establish rapport and ease the tension. Uh, Now, something very important, try to set your own goals and limits and devote one day every year to analyze and design your objectives. Where are you? What have you achieved? Why you haven't? The reasons behind, and what would you like to do during the next year? Because life is a balance, a very difficult balance, becoming more and more complicated because of the complexities, not just size. And this triangle shows you three vertices. One is you as a human being, the other one is work, and the other one is your personal relationships. So try to be more or less in the center of the triangle. And if you find you are far off that center, rethink what you're doing and go back to principles. And the principles I will ask you, I recommend you to go is, or are rather, are you have the right objectives? Have you identified what is relevant? Have you surrounded with the right people? Have you established a personal relationship with them? And then, do you know how to manage projects? If that's the case, then probably you are in the right track. And then I would like to finish with something which apparently has nothing to do with what we're doing here, but I think a genius told us many years ago in one of his songs. Remember, life is what happens to us while we're busy making other plans. So I hope this little presentation with some slides has been useful and helps you to be happier and successfully in your professional life. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer all the questions in this brief discussion we're going to have. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been a very interesting time, Dr. Jordi Delcor. Honestly, from my side, I really take very positive and constructive ideas and tips. So we have still 10 minutes. We can open a last 10 minutes time if somebody connected has any questions or doubts. We'll be very pleased on taking care. So let's see if somebody's having a question or a doubt or a comment to share with us. Okay. So even we didn't have right now doubts, all of you, you have our contact details, and you can, contact us, and you can share your questions and with us, and we will be very I mean, very pleased to attend that. Okay, from my side, it's true that I have a question, and it's how to develop a better relationship with workers who are, I mean, in difficult situations or thinking, with new projects and all that.
Okay, I understand you're talking about new recruits, right?
Exactly,
People getting
exactly.
bored.
Yes, and exactly.
Okay, uh, this relationship, skills, commitment, and resources applies always, and especially and particularly in this situation where people join the team. I've seen many times people joining an organization, and the first day they say, "This is your terminal, this is your table. I'll talk to you
Mhm.
later."
Exactly.
That's
Hmm.
and that's not a way to do it. And then people survive because people know how to survive. But it's very stressful, and also there are many mistakes, and mistakes generate frustration
Hmm.
for both the employee, the colleagues, and the users or customers. So, an induction where people have the right processes, the right how to do things, and who is who in the organization, and they have perhaps somebody shadowing them. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but somebody following what they do and having short and frequent feedback for the next few days will make the life more productive, and people will be happier. So this is what I always do. And also go to the beginning of the page. What are the objectives of your position?
Hmm.
And many bosses tend to talk about do this instead of this is their objective.
Okay. We have talked mainly with new talent that is arriving on onboarding. But what
Sorry,
about, yeah,
sorry, the echo is terrible. I can hardly understand you.
okay. What about right now?
Can you speak and speak
Yes,
very
okay.
slowly, please?
Okay. We talk about the ones starting on onboarding. What about
Yeah.
this talent that you have already in the company from long time ago, that they resist for changes? Any tip that you can share
Okay.
with us?
Well, here the situation still is very similar, but the main emphasis could be should be in commitment.
Hmm.
You know what happens? Why should people be committed in an organization? When you just join a company, you are supposed to be committed. You are enthusiastic about the new position and no time for frustration. So your hopes are high. So if you don't spoil it, you have that person on board for granted. But when people have been working for a long time in a company, then they have discovered the root reality, and the expectations are not as high as they were. So
Hmm.
it's very important that people have the opportunity to speak their minds, have frequent feedback with the bosses, where they can
Hmm.
really identify what is wrong, suggest new methods of doing things, having feedback on how they're doing and what should be doing, and also having sometimes to relax. And at some time, people should be approached with a simple, honest question. Do you like what you're doing? Are you happy with what you're doing? Could you do something else in your organization? What value could you provide and you are not providing? That's a very honest question. And sometimes people may discover that they are not going to be working in the organization and they shouldn't be working. But I think long term is very good for both parties. If people no longer belong to the organization or they feel they don't belong to it, it's better that they leave and then they establish, let's say, a disengagement period where they end up a relationship in a nice, productive manner for everybody. But here the emphasis is in commitment, and commitment requires communication, feedback, and honesty from both sides. So managers should be brave here.
Fantastic. Perfect. So very well understand. As I said, for me, it's been a great pleasure to attend to this event. Honestly, I get very positive and constructive ideas and tips. I just hope that everyone connected today enjoy as well. So thank you very much again, Dr. Delcor. Thank you very
My
much for
pleasure.
everybody that organized that event, that make happen, and all the attendees. And as we said, if somebody have any questions, any doubts, you can address us and we will give you an answer. So have a lovely day to everybody.